Hello, this is Frantz Kantor, cartoonist, illustrator, and toon talker. And I'm here at the Australian Cartoon Museum, and I'm here with
Jim Bridges, and we're in downtown Docklands in the Australian Cartoon Museum, the bowels of the museum. And we've shut the place because of social distancing.
Yeah. So we're in the bowels, so you know that this is going to be shit.
So we're going to do an isometric drawing.
What's that?
Well, when I did tech drag, isometric meant you draw through 3 different angles, but I'm talking about isolation. It's an isolation drawing, isn't it?
Ah, okay. All right, well, today we've got another caricature. We're doing someone that's very, very interesting, a very, very interesting face. I've done a little thumbnail sketch here of the subject just to work out the basic structures and when I'm going to do it. Just very, very simple, rough gesture. I call these thumbnails. And then from that, I just drew up like a bigger version of the thumbnail and just corrected some of the shapes, some of the proportions, whatever. So this is very rough. And I'm going to start in a sec. Just to let you know who it is, it's Germaine Greer. So I've actually picked a shot that's a little bit earlier. This is the Germaine that we know and love. Or people that know and love. She's kind of a provocateur. She's very much of a provocateur. So you could tell from her expression, she's got a very provocative sense of humour. Very, very interesting face. Very interesting face. This is another, again, a little bit more recent, I think. And she looks very wise, You could tell from her expression. Just look at the lines in her face. It's like very, very sedate. It's very settled in an expression of study and knowledge.
They stuck her on a stamp.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So we get to lick the back of her head like the Queen. This is the Germaine that I kind of I recognise probably more. I don't recognise her younger days, but there is an interesting difference between the older, the bespectacled version of Germaine and the more sort of studious one. Some very interesting lines happening here. And shapes that we're going for, and it's similar. It's kind of in between the female eunuch writer and the television star as it is today. I mean, she's a very respected journalist, of course, but we're going to pick this shot to work from. We're going to pick that. That's going to be our reference. That's going to be our anchor, and let's get into it. So I've got these little stubby pencils, which they all end up stubby pencils. So we use probably a pencil holder to as an extender.
You can get the pencil holders in art shops. Where else can you get them?
You can get versions of this is a Derwent one, I think. You can get versions of them in.
Just make your own with a stick and a bit of tape. Yeah.
It's got to be fairly solid,
yeah.
So it's extending the handle so that you can get
I've just never seen them, so you buy them in art shops, do you?
You have to have enough pencil so that you could do a violin bow grip and a normal pen grip.
Is that a drawing term or a musical term?
One of my students pointed it out to me yesterday. It's called a violin bow grip on a pencil. That's if you want to get something loose. So when I was sketching this up and this, I was using a violin bow grip. All right, so there's some interesting shapes. You want to talk about Germaine? You've known Germaine's work. You've read the
Oh yeah, I read it when it came out in the
eunuch?
70s, the big one, the female eunuch.
Right.
It's a real roller coaster of a book. It's she's unlike any other feminist in that she, I think, like for instance, she's more of freedom than equality. A lot of feminists want equality with men. She thinks that's a bit of a furphy, a bit of a...
She has her own opinions.
Oh, yeah.
And she's very strong with her own opinions.
She believes in freedom.
So she doesn't believe in towing the line.
Yeah, freedom of the individual, whether you're a male or a female. You know.
So, actually, another female hero of mine is Ayn Rand. Yeah.
Oh.
Probably make
you and
myself
Steve Ditko, eh?
very unpopular, but I kind of like... Look, I don't believe in a lot of the political stuff, socio-political elements of her writing, but certainly the individual, the freedom of the individual, the creative Superman.
I don't know what. That'd be a great debate to see Ayn Rand go up against Germaine Greer. That'd be really interesting.
I think they'd have many points of similarity, and then the points of difference. Of course, they get quite.
Joe Sinnott, who worked a lot with Jack Kirby, he did a graphic novel of Ayn Rand.
Didn't Ditko do the?
Oh well, he was really influenced by, but he didn't do it.
What was the name of Ayn Rand's?
Mr. A.
Yeah, Mr. A. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was based on her book, which became a film.
Atlas.
Yeah.
Shrugged or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting topics. It's about the power of the individual over the collective. And they identified...
Isn't that story about an architect who builds a building and then he doesn't like it and he tries to destroy it?
That's the first book.
It was made in a film with...
Gary Cooper.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the woman who married Roald Dahl, the actress. She was in HUD with Paul Newman.
Yes.
Old blokes' memories are going, aren't they?
She was also in one of my very favourite films, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh, yes. Michael Rennie.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get back to Germaine. Well, she was born in 1939 in Melbourne, Australia. And she's written about probably 20 books. Mm-hmm. She's done so many things. She's worked on pornography magazines. She's sort of been on television shows, especially controversially on The Big Brother, I think in England, where she caused a stir and she got kicked off pretty early. But she said she only did it to get money to buy land.
In Italy?
To buy land in Queensland to reclaim the forest. And she got into Aboriginal stuff. She's written lots of stuff. Actually, she's written one of the best books I've ever read on Shakespeare. It's a small book, but it's terrific. It's just her insight into Shakespeare is one of the best things I've ever read. And it's up there with Harold Bloom's book, I reckon. On
Shakespeare?
Yeah. And she also wrote a book on his wife, which we know bugger all about.
Mrs. Shakespeare.
Anne Hathaway, we know bugger all about her, but she used, I haven't read the book, but I suppose she surmised a lot of stuff about women's roles and their rights at that time. Yeah.
Elizabethan England.
Yeah. And of course, I was 20 when The Female Eunuch came out, and my experience with women was pretty...
so you weren't on
unexplored. So it was a great book to read, and
so you weren't on a campus or anything. You weren't in university.
No. I actually lived over the road from Melbourne University, and I only went there for the cheap meals and to catch all the movies. Yeah.
So you were actually on campus, but you weren't in the faculty. You weren't studying.
No, I actually went to classes.
You did?
I was interested in. Yeah, I went to different classes.
Well, that kind of makes sense now because it's quite an academic book, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not. It's a polemic. It's a roller coaster of a ride. She really, it's a great book. It's breathtaking what she says. She's not, it's not boring. I mean, she is an academic. That's basically what she is. But she transcends that by doing all these other things. Anyway, so when she was at Melbourne University, she actually helped set up the Melbourne Theatre Company, which became the Melbourne Theatre Company. So she's one of the originators of that.
Why would she set up the theatre company?
Well, she was she was at university and she got into theatre. She did acting. She's done some films.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Do tell.
Yeah, anyway, she's, gone to the University of Warwick, the Cambridge and University of Tulsa, where she teaches.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's only 24 hours too, And the female uni came out in 1970, and a lot of feminists hated it, and men liked it.
All right.
And it was regarded as they pushed it as the saucy feminist and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So did she come to lock horns with many of the feminists at the time?
Not really. They sort of ignored her, but she, at the time, Norman...
Was she more of a populist in their eyes, perhaps?
Well, I mean, she had such independent ideas that she didn't fall in with everybody else. And, and she's always...
That's what I like. That. That's what I actually like about her.
Well, yes, a lot of Australians call her a ratbag, but but she's a great ratbag, I reckon. One of our greatest ratbags.
Explain what a ratbag means in this sense. Is it somebody who has a very strong opinion, or
no? Is this someone who's
throws the rats
ratty?
Among, the cat among the pigeons.
Who's not normal. Who's not
towing the line.
Yeah, who's got unusual views and stuff. He's a real, he could be a political ratbag or a religious ratbag, or but she didn't so much clash with the feminist. But she clashed with Norman Mailer. Norman Mailer came out with some
Playboy.
book, which I can't remember. He came out with some book because of the second wave of feminism was hitting, and she was her book, along with Betty Friedan and people like that, they were a big deal, at the time. But there was a famous debate with Norman Mailer because he'd come out...
That was a Playboy interview, I think.
No, it was a debate on in
TV.
some hall.
Oh, okay.
And it was filmed by Penny Baker, the great documentary filmmaker. And what was it called? I think it was called Town Bloody Hall. Anyway, she absolutely mopped the floor with him. She just tore him to pieces. And I mean, he's this guy who was... noted for his masculinity in his literature, and he was a tough guy and he did boxing and all that sort of stuff, and she just tore his arguments to pieces. And she's very funny, and at that time she was really,
is this a scored debate? Do they have like a point at the end?
I think it became such a one-sided...
You win the award.
I think it became such a one-sided affair that they didn't even bother with that sort of stuff. Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen the film. I think it's available on YouTube, but it's called Town Bloody Hall. Yeah, by Penny Baker, the bloke who made the Bob Dylan doco all those years ago.
So
anyway, so she went to England and she got involved with Oz magazine, the Oz trial thing, the Australian things that they did that caused that big court case. They jailed him. Then Jeffrey Robertson sort of got him out of jail. And she got involved with...
Was she in jail for that?
No, she didn't go to jail, but...
That was an indecency trial.
They had a picture of a Robert Crumb sexual drawing, and they put Rupert the Bear's head on the character.
That's right, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, anyway, and she got caught up with all sorts of things. She dated Clinton, and she dated Clive James and all sorts of stuff. She was... she had guts, and I remember once in America when she was promoting one of her books, there were all the women in the audience who followed her, and there was one bloke there, and he was determined to bring her down, to embarrass her publicly.
By
his
her a question, scintillating intellect.
Well, so he gets up and says, and who was the best person you had sex with,
Okay.
And of course, all the women are upset at that question. She said, no, I'll answer the question. She said, well, when I was in Italy, we had a 75-year-old Italian labourer who used to work in my garden.
Yeah, the gardener.
And we had sex, and it was the best. He treated me like I was a beautiful, like important, sacred object, and his touch was the best I've ever experienced. Anyway, so she's got the guts, and she's uses truth to sort of fight.
I think that's what we kind of pick up from her. She does occasionally say things that rattle society, but like the Steve Irwin comment, I think was that kind of comes to mind.
Yeah, when Steve Irwin died, everybody was upset
about her comment.
What did she say? She said that
it's nature taking revenge.
That's
against
right, Mother
all the poking and prodding and things
that's
that
right.
he used to do. But it was a funny off the cuff comment,
She also didn't approve of Mother Teresa. She was a bit of a real stirrer, And also when Julia Gillard, Australia's first
Prime Minister,
female Prime Minister, she said that what she said she needed to change the cut of her jackets because she had a big ass.
Yeah,
and
she's a provocative. She's a provocative public figure, so you can't really second guess her. You can't presume that if you have her on a panel or something, you can't presume that she's going to toe the line. She's going to break with convention and just do her own thing. She has the thing I love about Germaine is that you don't know what she's going to say, and but whatever she says, it's going to be from her point of view. So it has a level of truth and humour.
Even when she says something absolutely ridiculous, it's coming from a considered point of view. It's not something that some airhead just says and gets blown out of proportion.
I don't think you can back her into a corner at all. I think she's very...
And she's one of the best people on media I've ever seen. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, radio or TV, especially TV. She just does what she wants with it,
It's good that she hasn't... I mean, everyone's probably breathed a sigh of relief that she hasn't gone into politics, because she would just vaporise the opponents.
Yeah, well, she's been described as the Christopher Hitchens... the female Christopher Hitchens, but I can see why they say that. But at the same time, she's an academic. I mean, she's written 20 books. I mean, besides writing books, like she wrote a book called The Change, which is about menopause. Danger, menopause. And she wrote a book about her father called Daddy, I Hardly Knew You. And she didn't know much about him at all because he came back from the war really, really unusual and
distant.
But, I mean, what she did, to do the book, she actually got hypnotised and had all these questions to get the person to hypnotise her to ask her these questions so she could remember her subconscious. So, I mean, to do stuff like that, and being an academic, it's just like what a rat.
So regression. She went into a regression.
But I mean, you don't do stuff like that if you're an academic. You know what I mean? It just sort of, she's just got the courage of her convictions. Anyway, she wrote for Suck magazine and Private Eye, all sorts of sexual things. And but she's basically, she sees herself as an academic, and she's written. Well, I think she wrote the first book about women painters called The Obstacle Race. And, and she also wrote the first important book about women poets.
Yeah.
And she actually went on to form a publishing house called Stump Cross Books. And they published 17th to 18th century women poets. So she set that up.
That's interesting.
And she also wrote a book about women poets. I can't remember what it's... Slipshod... Sibyls or Sibyls? Sibyls, yeah.
Sibyls?
Yeah.
Sibyls are the Roman...
Slipshod.
What are they called? The the augurs, the women that predicted the future from the entrails of
Well, that was the first
animals.
decent book about women poets. So she's, and as I said, she's written 2 books about Shakespeare.
Yeah. So, what's her take on Shakespeare? Is that from a feminist point of view, or is that from a historical?
I'd say she's a humanist. Really, she's a humanist, and she's not interested in. She thinks that the feminists always talk about equality. She just thinks that that's the wrong way to go, and she's got controversial ideas about rape and all sorts of stuff. But she's it's interesting. It's not just crazy left or right wing sort of rants. They're considered, and if you read that little book she wrote on rape, which is basically an extended essay, it does make you think, and that's basically what her job is as an academic.
Yeah, it's to provoke argument. So argument can be critical, can be, in agreement, I guess, but critical argument is supposed to raise questions. We learn by raising questions. Children that don't question authority or question things, question reality, are they don't grow. So we as a society have to grow. We need questions. We need people like Germaine Greer, especially in a patriarchal society like Australia. You need that level of dialogue, that level of thought that questions everything. The church, politics, the patriarchal system, and most of us don't even realise that it's there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we grow up.
We realise it's there, but it's been
know.
there for so long. You just think, well, it's in concrete.
You take it for granted, yeah. But men don't realise it's there, and we don't realise how pervasive it is in our structure, in our talk, in our thoughts, and the way that we presume and act.
Yeah.
The way that we presume over, things like nature, for example. We have a very patriarchal notion of how nature suits us, rather than us suiting nature, or us sort of fitting into any sort of plan. So having women, strong women, is a very important role for men, because without that you don't have any real grip on reality. You don't have any grip on the earth. You're just sort of presuming these bullshit lies that you grow up into, and I think you need. Does it show that I've grown up with women all my life? Probably. But I consider myself lucky. I think it's a great experience, so that to question things. I've always had, my daughters always have the ability and the knowledge that, don't take everything for granted. Don't take any shit. And I love women that stand up for themselves and just call, if you see bullshit, call bullshit. That's it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, we're just going to be covered in bullshit for the rest of our lives.
I think anybody who learns from the opposite sex is ahead of the pack, basically, because that's one of the great things about relationships, how you can learn from,
Yeah, but even like the notion of opposite sex is like, them and us. It's like, well, we're going to take sides here, boys, and, it's war, and don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes.
Which side are you on, boy?
So, the combative nature of argument is a negative notion. So the idea, what I regard as argument, is something that either changes your point of view or adds to your perspective on a point of view. So you may have a point of view that you argue, one way, but that's really based on the knowledge up to that point. you may not have the full spectrum of information or depth of feeling and things like that. There's a lot of things that we as men take for granted in our lives that is patently wrong and patently unfair, and like job equality, but just it goes a little bit beyond job equality. Be careful with the black pencil. I think it's maybe a little bit too severe. I don't want to sort of give the impression of tiredness. I love the lines, by the way. They tell me a lot about her personality. She's very inquiring and very honest.
What about her mouth? What does her mouth tell you?
Again, the mouth is a very, if somebody has a lot of wrinkles or muscles around the mouth.
You're caricaturing that mouth.
I'm caricaturing every aspect.
I know, but in particular the mouth, and I'm just saying, what do you think? What does the mouth tell you about it?
Well, the mouth tells me that she's very considered. She doesn't actually talk a lot until she's got the full end of the argument.
Yeah.
It's like you go down a street, but you've got to, where the destination is, where you're going with the argument. I think that her mouth is just, it shows me that she spends most of her time thinking and not a lot of her time talking. But when she talks, oh boy, she's really prepared for opening up, she's really prepared for argument.
She's been banned from talking on university campuses, and not by the university but by the students, because some bloke who had a sex change wanted to join an all-female organisation. And she said, it's typical, it's another thing where males are trying to take over women's organisations.
All right.
And my God, did the shit hit the fan on that one.
Yeah.
And all over the world. So she's been banned from all campuses because by the students, not by the university itself. So it just sort of shows. I think that story sort of shows where we are in the fact that free speech is not what everybody claims it is. You know what I mean? How dare she have that opinion, and therefore she shouldn't have a public platform.
Well, yeah. Taking a public platform away is wrong.
Yeah.
I think people...
But especially with a university, because surely that's the place where you try out ideas. I remember the time I spent at uni, not as a student, but just checking out the... I was a garbage collector, and we got up pretty early, and when I finished my job, I went home and I went over to the university and had meals, and I just met friends there, and I checked out the theatre and the films, in particular the films. The people I met, there are all sorts of incredible ideas. That's the whole thing about a university too. It's not what they teach you, but also
of ideas.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the fact that they won't let her talk about these subjects. That's the other thing. A lot of people shut people down because of one sentence they say, or they take the thing out of context, It becomes a rabble thing,
Yeah, I think maybe it's something
you're having fun with the hair.
I think it might be something to do with what's in fashion at the time. It might be this is a shut-up period of public opinion. And in 10 years' time, there'll be an opening up. There'll be a new renaissance of public thought, or something like that. But it just depends. I think these things are like a cyclic thing. It's always happened. We kind of think that the Renaissance was the period where they opened up thought and they get pushback from the church. And then we find that that's actually not true. The church were one of the first people to say that the earth was round, for example.
Yeah, but then they shut it down.
It became something that I think...
the Greeks knew that
the fear
1,000
of
years
opinion.
before Christ, 1,000 years BC. The Greeks knew that.
Yeah. Well, it probably goes back... It has to go back further than that. depictions of the world... model it's been more varied than people like to think, and the flat Earth theory is actually false, and it's actually quite a recent invention. Just give you an example, it's very recent. Like within
what
50
about all
years.
the people who wouldn't finance Columbus because the boats would fall off the side of the world? What do you mean?
Well, they didn't believe that. They just didn't believe that it was possible to reach India.
Okay, all right.
They didn't.
When did you
the flat
first...
Earth thing is just a recent
I mean,
invention.
I'm older than you, and I grew up with her early career. So, when did you first hear about it?
Probably the Playboy interview. I think that she started getting a lot of press, obviously, and that's when you would hear about it, and you'd say, "Oh, there's a Australian free-thinking woman that is not afraid of a fight, and good on her." I think pushing back against society, against conventions and things, is a positive thing, because we always need to change. We always need to change and grow as a culture, individually, of course. Open up opinion, open up thought, grow individually. But I love the fact that you've got somebody with that conviction who's able to actually stand up, and it's not a symbol, because oftentimes symbols are just symbols, they're kind of hollow. She has substance. She's got a personal opinion, and that's where I think the magic is.
And she's certainly done her homework.
Germaine. Yeah, she's got a sense of herself, and if you grow up, you want to have a sense of yourself too. So she's like a model for somebody who has a sense of her own self. So she's like a standard to live up to, I guess, for people, not just women, but men as well. Men should have the ability to question the system. Why do you just take things at face value? Question the system all the time. Always question the system.
Well, you see, as a feminist, she was always critical of her mother, and of course, you don't say that if you're a feminist. You don't white ant the sisters.
The sisters.
The sisterhood.
Oh, okay.
The sisters. Yeah.
I thought you were going to talk about nuns for a second.
No, she's brought up by the nuns, and she actually appreciated the Star of the Sea down by the beach down there.
What's that?
Oh, it's a type of nun, the Star of the Sea, I think they're called. It's a school she went to, and she.
Where was she from? Adelaide? Or?
No, she's from Melbourne, but I think it's down in. Where is it? Down near just along the ocean before Frankston, somewhere down there.
Cool.
And she always quotes that her big influences are some of the nuns who taught her. Independent women,
Well, that's it. The people presume nuns toe the line. They toe the... Yeah. But, they have... They can be very... very vocal about human rights and change and the ills of society. They're after all, they're people. You can't... you cannot knock the people.
I think you've definitely nailed her. Yeah, you definitely nailed her.
She's a very, very interesting subject.
Oh, look!
And,
I suggest you check out her life on Wikipedia. It's just an extraordinary thing. The amount of things she's done. I remember one thing. For instance, there was a early women's magazine in Melbourne called Pol, P-O-L, and it was a fashion magazine and makeup, all that sort of stuff. She gets hold of. They let her edit the whole issue and things like that. And plus, I mean, she was in magazines like Screw and Suck and things like that. And she used to write these sexual liberating articles. Yeah, there's a picture of her behind one of the guys in Oz magazine. I think it was a cover of Oz. And she's behind him, cheekily looking around the corner, zipping down his pants and all that sort of stuff, you know. And this is the woman who...
well, she has a sense of humour, see?
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing about Germaine.
Yeah.
You can't really put her in a box. You can't really presume that, you know, this is what you're going to get. She's unpredictable, and that's the thing that I like most about her. Yeah. She's going to come up with something that may rankle the hackles of everybody, you know. And why not? Why not? Are we that superly sensitive to criticism that or convention that we are ignorant of humour?
Australia claims Australians, a lot of Australians claim to be like the land of the free and all that sort of stuff compared to America and Britain and all that sort of stuff, but
well, I don't think that's...
I don't think it's true either, but I think she's called a ratbag, but I think she's...
I think we're very conservative.
I think
she
so
nailed
too.
that.
I think so too.
A lot of her thoughts and opinions on Australia. There's a lot of conservative attitudes, you know, and but look, if you have a sense of humour like Germaine has, I think you can accomplish a lot in your life. And this is the thing that is the most, to me, is the most interesting and powerful life lesson. So it's not just having the opinion and to stand up for that opinion, but also to have the ability to laugh at yourself, laugh at the situation, laugh at the absurdity of convention of you know. In many ways, society itself is a big parade of fools.
She sold her personal archive about everything she wrote and everything she did to the Melbourne University. And apparently there was something like about 155 sized, drawers on filing cabinets. 155 of those full of all her stuff, all her writings.
Right.
So I think her legacy...
That's almost a museum.
Yeah, I think her legacy is going to go on after she dies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And they'll mine those archives and find out all sorts of stuff about her. But I just want to say one quote about her. Someone called Sarah Dittum, who I'm sorry I don't know anything about, she said this quote. She says, "Germaine doesn't get into trouble occasionally or inadvertently, but consistently, and with the attitude of a tank rolling directly into a crowd of infantry." And I think that really sort of sums her up.
But that anger and energy, well, not really anger, but that sort of is the word indefatigable. The tank-like quality of Germaine is unflappable. Yeah. Well, that's from another feminist from the Titanic, isn't it?
Well, I haven't seen that film.
I'm talking about the incident.
Oh, the incident?
Yeah, the little incident that happened in the Atlantic.
Oh, that incident, okay.
1912. Okay. Yeah, there was an American...
Was that the Lusitania? No, that was another incident.
That's another incident. What was I going to say now?
The Mary Celeste, the incident of the Mary Celeste.
Well, how was there a feminist on the Mary Celeste?
I don't know. I'm just chucking it in there to see what happens to you. So we've now reached the white stage.
Yeah, we've reached her famous mole. So I'm...
Her famous mole?
Yeah, she has a mole. So she's got a she's got a sensitive face.
I love the chin you put on it.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
She has a very sensitive face, a very feminine, very beautiful. She has a very beautiful face.
She wouldn't like hearing all this stuff.
Well, okay, that's fine.
She thinks that femininity is a social construct.
It's not about femininity. It's about beauty. Is not about just femininity. Beauty is about other aspects that have got nothing to do with femininity. It's really to do with attraction and attraction is like very fluid, right? It's not a sexual thing. It's like an intellectual thing. It's
As
like something
Charles
that you
Kovas
find.
would say, it's all energy.
Yeah, well, everything is energy.
Yeah.
I know, I just find her fascinating. Her sense of humour. I really enjoy her sense of humour. And her opinion, even if I don't agree with her opinion at the time, it's... I really enjoy it. I really enjoy hearing
When
her
she comes
speak,
out with something on television and people are aghast and all that sort of stuff,
I love
she,
that.
She sits
It's my
there
favourite.
in a relaxed situation, doesn't she? She sits there very relaxed while they're all, oh, what's going on here, guffawing and carrying on. She's just totally relaxed in her opinion.
Exactly. That's when I love her the most.
Yeah.
That's perfect
Yeah,
for
I
me.
think she's...
I'm happy that, the cat among the pigeons, if she's able to be the cat among the pigeons for the rest of her life, that suits me. I love that. Upset the establishment, That's what it needs. The establishment is there to be upset. That's why we need someone like Germaine.
Can you imagine if Germaine Greer and Barry Humphries mated, the sort of child they'd create?
No.
It'd be like a superhero comedian slash academic.
Okay. All right. I don't know. The idea of superhero, Germaine as superhero. Maybe Germaine is a superhero in a way. It's not without merit. I think that concept, because she kind of stands for something, but not in a symbolic way. I think she's more grounded and independent. Grounded in that her values have a real perspective, comes from a life lived, like a real life, not a. She doesn't come off as somebody from an ivory tower or from a convent or from a garret. She comes off as somebody who's actually knows what she's talking about, and her opinions are based on experience.
She's an intellectual Indiana Jones.
Oh, I like that. That's good. That's a nice. That's pretty good. I like that. Okay, so getting back to the model, this is okay. A lot of caricatures you do. You kind of excuse me, Germaine. A lot of
That's
caricatures.
respect.
Yeah,
that's respect.
So
it's not fear, is it, or is it respect?
It's awe. So a lot of caricatures are. I tend to do a lot of, 3/4 headshots, right, for caricatures, and the reason for that is that you get a little bit of the front view and a little bit of the side view of the character,
and you only have to draw one ear.
Yeah, yes, that's true. And you only have to draw one ear, but the idea of it is to create a solid form that has, variety. Okay, you've got like one ear. You've got perspective acting on the forms, on the elements of the face, the different features of the face. Okay, so going back to the T zone, where you're concentrating on the mouth, the nose, and the eyes in this sort of mask area of the face, right? It gives you a little bit of variety. So it's the T, but it's the T. I didn't do that very well. It's the T in perspective.
The T can be any shape.
T in perspective.
The T can be any shape, can't it? Because of depending on the face.
No, a T has to be a T.
No, it can be a T, but it can be a fat T, a thin T, a short T, a long T. It has to be a T, yeah. Yeah.
So the idea is you're focusing on these elements that are inside this T zone, this mask, okay? So the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. The proportions of each, you change the proportions, but you have to change the proportions, the proportions of the elements in relation to each other. Okay, so it's all sort of in the context of each of the elements as a whole. So when you do a front face, it's always quite
all symmetrical,
simple, probably too simple. So I tend to not like to do front caricatures.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Because there isn't any of this perspective. You've got to try to build up a sense of solid form, right? And there's also the battle that people have of symmetry.
Yeah.
So in this case, I've got a little bit of an angle happening.
The battle of
with
symmetry.
the,
now, there's a whole chapter there.
Yeah, it's like the battle of the bulge, but it happens on both sides of the Atlantic. All right, so I'm just going to. What am I doing? I've lost my train of thought. I think what I'll do is I quite like the. I know what I was going to do. I was going to put some more highlights in there.
I think that looks beautiful as it is.
I just want to help it out a little bit, because she's got this sort of.
That cover too of the female eunuch, of the woman's body with handles on the side hanging over like a
it was
rail.
A lovely.
I thought it was an extraordinary picture, and it sort of it became a bit like Sgt. Pepper's album cover.
Do you know the illustrator?
No. But I saw an article because he did about 5 different versions of it.
Right.
And he actually had her in one of the pictures.
Right.
But I just think it's a great,
Yeah. This is
like love handles, and they're actual handles, and she's just it's a clothing, it's like a dress that she puts on, that a woman puts on.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it's not about her. Yeah, it was very interesting. Very interesting cover. Striking. And she's, her book's never, The Female Eunuch has never been out of print.
Mm.
And 1970, so that's, what's that? 50 years ago.
Mm. So she's still banking checks.
Yeah, well, when she went on the Big Brother in England, I think it was, they gave her a lot of money to go on that because she, they knew they were going to have sparks flying with her. But she got off pretty early, and she put all the money. I think all the money she got off Melbourne University, because she sold her archive to Melbourne University for a lot of money, and it all went to that land that she bought in Queensland. Don't know how many acres it is, but she's trying to bring back the rainforest.
Wow, very cool.
I love the hair. You've done a great job with the hair.
The hair is fun, the idea of pencil, drawing hair with a pencil.
That's going to be difficult if you put a background in, isn't it?
Maybe. Kind of thrown me off here a little bit. I was going to do a black background, but I think I'll do a white background instead, maybe. So
whitewashing Germaine, you heard it here first.
Yeah. So nearly, we're finishing up here. Don't worry.
This is less white on the face than any other drawing I think you've done in the series, isn't it?
No, there's just enough.
That's what I'm saying. There's.
Yeah. You have to be very careful, very measured with this thing, because you're working on grey paper.
Yeah. And
you're creating a three-dimensional pencil.
Yeah.
So it's still pencil, but it's using 3 colours, brown, black and white. You're creating a sculpted effect.
Yes. But I just say, looking at all the other ones you've done, there's less white on her face than any of the other pictures you've ever done in this series.
Yeah, more than likely. I think, there's less probably side light that I'm picking up from the reference. I'm kind of exaggerating these the side lights, the lights that come in from the side to pick up a bit of texture. Skin's a beautiful organ of the human body because it has so many varieties of texture and colour and tone in one face. So this is always a very important aspect to play with in a caricature, in a drawing. and it's interesting. So studying her as I drew her, thinking about the lines and the wrinkles and the forms as I went, there also the expression. So there's a lot happening in her face, as I said. There's a very strong sense of humor that I get from her. Yeah, see that. There's a very strong sense of I get from her that she's got a very strong sense of humor and she's very opinionated. She's a very strong sense of herself, and that's like the one of the most attractive things about her face, because she has strength of character.
Yes,
and
which is another aspect of what beauty really is, isn't it?
Well, I don't know about beauty itself, but it's certainly interesting. I mean, yes, you could say anything is beautiful, but the fact that she has strong character, and it shows in her expression, and shows in her lines in her face, right? This is a very important thing to think about when you're drawing somebody, because this shapes how you tend to emphasize certain aspects, right? So caricature is more than just big nose, big ears, big head, small body, bang, off you go. It's more than that. It's not a symbol, it's not a trope, it's a process. And in that sense, it can be very informative and very cathartic in a way, because you're discovering this person. So with your pencil, you're kind of feeling your way through the subject, through the person. You're actually using the pencil as a sort of a touch. So it's very touchy-feely. So you're kind of touching the person's face, running your hands over the features, like if you were blind, without vision. In order to read her face, you have to run your fingers over the features, and then you form a mental picture. Well, this is kind of like that, because you're running your pencil over these features, over these shapes. And hang on a sec. I can't spell and draw at the same time.
You can't?
No. What I was saying was oops. See? Told you.
Is she related to Pam?
Oops. Okay.
I love the Medusa look too.
Yeah. So, very interesting character, and I enjoyed this drawing very much. I hope you guys did as well.
I think she's one of the great women of the world.
Yeah, she's a very, very interesting character.
We'll go down in the history books when we find out more about her.
I might just actually, while I'm there, I might let's see if I can darken something here. She's got beautiful grey eyes that kind of wither you a little bit. She's got that sort of icy stare, but it's a stare that you can't really turn away from, because it's very, very
the
measured.
Medusa look.
Well, it's more of a muse, like somebody that has a strong effect over the viewer, because you're feeling something. You're feeling a empathic connection and a mental discourse. So yes, that's Germaine Greer, and this is Frantz Kantor, and I'm here with
Jim Bridges,
and
I'll
catch you on the flip side.
Yeah, what's on the flip side? I'd like to know.
Well, the back of the page.
Oh, that's the flip side. Okay, all right.
All right, we'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.